The Erebus spire drifted silently in the abyss, tethered to nothing but equations and ambition. It orbited the divide, a churning absence in the cosmos where light bowed, time buckled, and reality whispered lies into sleeping minds. Around the anomaly, the laws of physics grew thin, stretched like skin over bone. Inside the station, systems hummed and flickered as though unsure of their own code. A ventilation fan sputtered twice before continuing as if embarrassed. An overhead light in corridor 7B blinked a slow, a rhythmic pattern. Pause. Morse code, or maybe just decay. In laboratory 3, a screen buzzed to life with static. Log entry 0487, Dr. Erin Malik. Oxygen levels normal. Temporal drift, 0.0034%. Holding. Pause. Subject 02 reports seeing after images again. Phantom doubles. I've isolated the memory sector. Wait, no. Asterisk, the voice stutters. The static grows louder. Then, impossibly, the voice shifts pitch. Asterisk. No one leaves. Not anymore. A low laugh. I'm still here. We're all still here. Screams. Silence. The screen went black. Then, a door hissed open on the docking platform. Dr. Lyra Kael stepped onto the station, duffel bag slung over her shoulder, hair braided tight against the nape of her neck. Her boots echoed too sharply against the polymer floor. She paused. No greeting party. No docking officer. Just the faint hum of overclocked processors and the indifferent hum of deep space beyond the walls. A sleek automated loader trundled past her without acknowledgement, carrying sealed crates labeled exoparticle containment, handle with extreme care. One of the crates rattled. The loader didn't stop. Lyra frowned. Friendly, she muttered. The station's AI finally stirred to life, a hollow female voice broadcasting overhead. Welcome, Dr. Kael. Please proceed to orientation module B. Time is unstable. She blinked. Excuse me. Correction. Time is limited. Orientation module B. Lyra raised an eyebrow. Right. She walked briskly, the corridors lined with flickering panels and surveillance optics that twitched to follow her movement. The air smelled faintly metallic like ozone and old blood. As she passed a window, the divide filled her vision, a black hole unlike any other. Not a singularity, but a vertical gash across space, a jagged tear rimmed with firelight and anti-light, warping nearby stars like marbles dropped into water. Even from this distance, it felt alive. Watching. A chill crept into her spine, instinctive and primal. Every cell in her body whispered, wrong. She turned away. Orientation module B was deserted. A chair sat at the center of the room. A single screen projected an info loop, which glitched midway through. Welcome to the Erebus Spire Research Initiative. You have been selected for your expertise in quantum anomaly. BZZT. Containment protocols. Station morale, classified. Estimated survival. BZZT. Correction, system error. Please disregard. The screen blinked off. Lyra sighed. Off to a brilliant start. She spotted a tablet left on a side table. On instinct, she picked it up. It displayed a system map. She tapped into her assigned quarters. The corridor leading there felt suddenly off. The ceiling lights pulsed faintly like a heartbeat. She stopped outside her quarters and pressed her hand to the biometric scanner. It hissed open. She stepped inside and froze. There, on the wall written in her own handwriting, was a message scrawled in black marker. Don't trust him. She took a step closer. The handwriting was unmistakably hers, looping E's, the angular H. But she'd never written this. Had she? Her breath fogged as a sudden cold swept the room. Then the overhead lights dimmed, and the message began to flicker, disappearing and reappearing. Each flicker revealed variations. In one, it read "He isn't who he says he is." In another, "You're already too late." In another, it was smeared, like someone had tried to scrub it clean in a hurry. She blinked. Everything returned to normal. Just one message: "Don't trust him." The silence deepened. Lyra backed away slowly, her hand instinctively going to the data pad clipped to her belt. She started recording. Day 1. Erebus Spire. Multiple signs of system degradation, AI malfunction, and potential cognitive interference. She paused. And something is wrong. Deeply wrong. A chirp on her comm interrupted her thoughts. "Dr. Kael," came a smooth voice. Male. Confident. "This is Commander Vaughn. I'd like to formally welcome you aboard. When you've had time to settle, meet me in the central observation deck. I believe we have much to discuss." Lyra stared at the comm unit. "Don't trust him." Her pulse quickened. She didn't reply. Instead, she sat on the edge of the bed, watching the message on the wall like it might vanish again. Or change. Outside the viewport, the divide pulsed once. A heartbeat. Lyra's fingers hovered over the message on the wall. "Don't trust him." The ink was real. Still slightly raised, as if it had dried recently. But the log confirmed the room had been unoccupied for 4 months prior to her arrival. Sealed. Sterile. Clean. She'd passed the psych evals, hadn't she? Still, she scanned the room again. Every corner. Every vent. Empty. She finally peeled her eyes from the warning and turned to unpack, though the act felt absurd. Laying out clothes and a toothbrush under the looming shadow of an impossible message was like planting flowers in a war zone. As she opened the final drawer, something slipped from beneath a folded thermal shirt. A photograph. A real one, paper, not digital. Faded from age and atmospheric exposure. It showed a younger Lyra, no more than 17, standing on a shoreline beneath a copper-red sky. She was flanked by 2 people, her father, laughing, his lab coat caught by the wind like a cape, and her mother, crouched beside a rover drone, giving a thumbs up. The image hit her like a gravity punch. The planet was Thassalon 3. A temporary research colony. Remote. Quiet. Forgotten. The last place they'd been together. Before the accident. Before the Federation buried it under mountains of declassified data and navigational anomalies. She flipped the photo. On the back, in the same unmistakable handwriting as the wall message, was scrawled. Asterisk, "They lied to you, Lyra. They always have." Asterisk. Her knees weakened. She dropped onto the bed, the photo clutched in both hands. Her mouth was dry. Her heartbeat was not her own, it was the station's. The divides. Thunderous. Distant. Invasive. A soft chime interrupted her spiraling thoughts. Incoming call, Commander Darius Vaughn. She hesitated, then tapped accept. The screen flickered. A face materialized, chiseled, symmetrical, unnaturally calm. Commander Darius Vaughn, aged mid-40s, though his features hadn't yet surrendered to time. His eyes were a perfect storm gray, unreadable. "Dr. Kael," he said smoothly. "Welcome to Erebus. My apologies for not greeting you personally. There was an incident in engineering. Routine, but inconvenient." "What kind of incident?" "A temporary misalignment in gravitational harmonics. One of the crew experienced time dilation sickness, nothing fatal." He smiled as if that were an accomplishment. "I see. You've gotten settled, I trust." "More or less," she said, voice flat. "Someone left me a message on my wall." His eyebrows lifted. "Really? What kind of message?" She hesitated. "Nothing important. Probably a prank." He studied her for a beat too long. I'll have security look into it. Sure, she said. She didn't believe him. I understand the divide can be disorienting. You'll find strange things here, Dr. Kael. Echoes. Loops. We believe it may be leaking possibility into reality itself. Like a quantum wound that refuses to close. Sounds stable, she said dryly. His smile deepened, but it didn't reach his eyes. I look forward to discussing your assignment. The divide has begun emitting low-frequency temporal signatures. It may be attempting communication. She frowned. Attempting. We're scientists, he said. We have to consider all hypotheses. Even the insane ones. She muted the call for a moment and exhaled slowly. Then, she unmuted. I'll meet you at the observation deck in 20. Excellent. The screen blinked off. Lyra stared at her reflection in the dark glass. She had trusted before. Trusted the Federation, their protocols, their ethics, their assurance that the experiment on Thassalon 3 was safe. That nothing could go wrong. Then it had. Spectacularly. And their response had been silence. Obfuscation. Vanishment. The divide reminded her of that disaster. The same ambition in sterile halls. The same calculated detachment. She clipped her data pad to her belt, palmed the photo, and slid it into her jacket pocket. She wouldn't trust Vaughn. She'd trust no one. But she would watch. And listen. And if the divide was speaking, she would be the one to understand it. Dash. #### observation deck, 24 minutes later. The observation deck was a cathedral of glass and steel, suspended like a temple at the edge of the abyss. A panoramic viewport offered an unfiltered view of the divide, a churning gash across the stars, vertical and unnatural, as though reality had been slit open with a god's scalpel. Vaughn stood with his back to her, hands clasped behind him, gaze fixed on the anomaly. Do you know what I see when I look at it? He asked without turning. Lyra stopped a few paces behind him. Danger. Instability. Raw entropy. No, he turned slowly. I see the future. A threshold. He stepped closer to the glass. A place where we shed the constraints of linear existence. Where every version of us, every possibility, can exist in harmony or be forged into something greater. That's poetic, she said coolly. But unstable wormholes and quantum feedback loops aren't thresholds. They're death sentences wrapped in math. And yet you're here, he said. Curious, isn't it? She didn't answer. He smiled again. You'll be provided access to the latest anomaly scans. I want your analysis on the phase distortion by week's end. Assuming we still exist by then, she murmured. He turned sharply. Do you believe the divide is a threat? I believe it's something we don't understand. He nodded. Then you're smarter than most. As she left the observation deck, she heard it again just beneath the hum of the ship, beyond the audible spectrum. A voice. Her own. Screaming. The station dreamed. It did so between cycles when power dimmed across the unused corridors, when synthetic gravity throbbed in subtle, barely perceptible pulses. Somewhere in the subroutines, beyond firewalls and administrative clearance, Erebus Spire remembered things that had never happened. A cup left on a counter in a lab that had no personnel. A footprint on a sealed bulkhead. A personal log, time-stamped 5 years before the station was built. And in one particularly quiet hour cycle, Dr. Lyra Kael woke up to find herself not alone in her bed. She didn't feel the presence. She was the presence. Her body remained still beneath the polymer thermal sheets, breathing, dreaming. But she was also standing at the foot of the bed, staring down at herself. Her double looked different. The same face, same black hair braided in the same pattern, but subtly wrong, scarred along the jawline, a smear of dried blood on the collar of her uniform. Her eyes were darker. Wilder. Lyra tried to move. Couldn't. The double leaned down slowly, a flicker of recognition or pity crossing her face. "Don't let him close the gate," the double whispered. Her voice was gravel, as if pulled from 1,000 burned timelines. "It becomes him." Then she was gone. Lyra shot up, drenched in cold sweat. Her chest heaved. Her quarters were silent. The wall message was gone. She checked the clock, 0406 station time. She checked her datapad's biometric scan log. No anomalies. No detected intrusions. No records of movement other than her own. And yet the sheets beside her were still warm. Dash. #####. Later that day, Level 3 Research Bay. Temporal dissonance. Elashore said, peering over the rim of his glasses. He was short, twitchy, and brilliant in the unsettling way savants often were, perpetually multitasking and only partially tuned into consensus reality. Lyra sipped black coffee, the only tolerable option from the galley replicator. "I experienced displacement. I saw myself. Hallucinations aren't uncommon this close to the divide." Ella turned to a holographic projection of the anomaly's waveform signature. "It projects temporal bleed, nonlinear field harmonics, low-frequency probability shifts. We think it's folding time into itself. Like origami. Like a blender," he said flatly. "You're the sixth person who's reported contact with their other self. We're calling it echo convergence. The scary part isn't that it's happening, it's that the anomaly is predicting which versions show up." Lyra narrowed her eyes. "How do you mean?" Ella tapped the display. "We've been mapping these interactions. The doubles aren't random. They're tied to unresolved choices. Each one reflects a version of the subject at a decision point, a divergent node in your timeline." Lyra looked at him sharply. "Then the divide isn't just bleeding. It's aware." Ella didn't reply. His silence was answer enough. Dash. #####. 2 hours later, Medical Lab D. Lyra watched the drone pod decompress in the sterile decontamination chamber. It had been launched into the divide less than 6 minutes ago. 4 test crew aboard. Simulated stress tests. Basic cognitive function surveys. The door hissed open. The stench hit before the air filters adjusted. The drone's interior was dark and hot. The lights flickered. A shape moved inside slowly, almost reverently. One of the crew members, Ensign Merrick, emerged. He was 40 years older than when he had left. Hair white, face shriveled, eyes sunken but alert. A tremor in his hand. Scratches on his uniform. Dried blood on his mouth. He looked at Lyra and began sobbing, not from fear, but from relief. "I made it," he croaked. "I made it back." "How long were you inside the divide?" Lyra asked. His eyes twitched. "Long enough to forget which me I was. We kept dying. Or splitting. I saw myself, strangle myself. I saw someone else wear my face. They didn't speak, but they watched." He looked around suddenly, panicked. "It's still watching. It knows when you know." Lyra froze. "When what knows?" Merrick looked straight into her eyes. "The divide. It's not an anomaly. It's a mirror that thinks, and it remembers what you should have done." Then he screamed until they sedated him. Dash. ####. Later, Lyra's quarters. Her datapad pinged. A decrypted file appeared. No origin trace, no log entry. She opened it. It was a voice recording. Her voice. "This is Dr. Lyra Kael, 2371A. If you're hearing this, you've reached Echo Point. Vaughn isn't who he says he is. The divide isn't a passive phenomenon, it's a seed. It grows by decisions. Every time you hesitate, it spreads. You have to lock the loop. Anchor yourself. Don't. Static. Then a scream, hers again, sharper, closer. Then silence. Lyra sat frozen for a long time, the recording still playing in dead air. The station hummed around her. But now, the sound felt different. Like something breathing in the walls. Something waiting. She moved to the mirror above the wash basin and stared at herself. She blinked. And in the reflection, just for a fraction of a second, she wasn't alone. The elevator groaned as it descended into the lower deck sections of Erebus Spire. Few ventured into, and fewer returned from the same. Lyra gripped the railing tightly. The lights in the shaft flickered more erratically the deeper she went, as if the divide's influence grew stronger with every meter. The deck she requested didn't officially exist on any station schematic. It was a buried level, obfuscated in every file except one. The decrypted voice recording from Lyra Kael, 2371A, had referenced echo point, a term she found nowhere in research logs or Vaughn's briefings. But the metadata hidden in the recording, buried deep in quantum sublayers, contained a coordinate tag. A location. Deck -6. Archive Theta. The doors opened with a reluctant hiss. Dim red lights guided her down a corridor that looked abandoned, almost fossilized, coated in layers of dust and grime, its panels bearing the pitted scars of microfractures and old burns. It smelled like cold metal, machine oil, and something organic beneath that. The walls whispered as she passed. Not metaphorically, literally. Snatches of voices, overlapping in different languages and accents. Some urgent, some begging. Some her own. Don't close the gate. He's not real. We were never meant to reach this place. Lyra moved faster. At the end of the corridor stood a sealed bulkhead labeled Archive, Theta Echo, scorched and half collapsed. She raised her ID badge to the sensor. Access denied. Of course. She reached into her jacket, removed the toolkit clip to the lining, and cracked open the panel. Bypassing the security wasn't easy. Theta access required level 9 entropy keys, but she'd built part of Erebus security lattice back at Foundation Command. The lock hissed open after 5 tense minutes. Behind the door lay a narrow staircase spiraling downward. There was no gravity support here. The stairs floated in segments, broken and drifting slightly apart, forcing her to jump each gap with care. She descended. The air grew colder. The lights dimmed with each step, until only the pale glow from her wrist lamp illuminated the path. At the bottom, she found the archive. It wasn't what she expected. Not data vaults. Not server clusters or encoded walls. Instead, it resembled a mausoleum. Tall alcoves, each holding containment pods. Glass sarcophagi lined the walls. Inside them, people. Or rather, echoes of people. Some perfectly preserved. Some twisted by anomalies, fused with synthetic metal, warped by temporal flux. Faces she didn't recognize. Faces she did. Her own. 4 of her. Each in a different state of being. One sleeping. One screaming silently. One half disintegrated into raw probability. And the last. The last version stared at her with full awareness. Awake. Calm. She looked older. Wiser. And she smiled. A voice echoed from the chamber's edge. Welcome to Echo Point, Dr. Kael. Lyra spun, hand at her sidearm. A figure emerged from the shadows, tall, androgynous, dressed in deep obsidian robes embroidered with fractal glyphs. The folds of the garment shimmered with embedded circuitry, pulses of memory flowing like liquid light across their surface. I'm the archivist, they said. I've been expecting you. Lyra tensed. What is this place? The archivist gestured to the rows of pods. A graveyard of might-have-beens. Echoes of travelers who passed the divide and were not returned whole. They leave traces. This station's proximity has turned it into a magnet for fractured realities. Why am I in there? Lyra asked, gesturing at the pods. You've been here many times. In many forms. This version of you has simply arrived later than the others. The calm, older Lyra inside the pod spoke. Her voice was deeper, etched with fatigue. You won't understand yet. But you're close. It's not about Vaughn. Not really. He's just a mouthpiece. A mask. For what? The archivist folded their hands. The divide isn't just watching. It's searching. Lyra blinked. For what? For its source. Its origin. Every time we observe it, we are it. We're feeding the loop. Building the god that will one day tear this universe open. She stepped back. You're insane. No, said the pod Lyra. We were naive. And now, you must make a choice. You can leave here. Report back. Live a short, feudal life under Vaughn's guidance, until the divide consumes all time. Or. The archivist stepped aside, revealing a console unlike anything she'd seen. Organic. Breathing. It pulsed with an interface that shimmered like fluid thought. Or you can rewrite the loop, they said. You can anchor this version of yourself as prime. But the cost. Lyra looked to her alternate selves. Their eyes followed her now. Each held the weight of sacrifices made, lives lost. The cost is what? She whispered. The archivist didn't answer. But one of the pods opened with a hiss. The oldest Lyra stepped out. Her feet touched the ground lightly. She reached out. Let me show you. The moment their fingers touched, Lyra's mind shattered into 1,000 timelines. Dash. #### flash storm, memory fracture. She stood in a research bay watching herself scream as the divide peeled open inside a child's body. She stood beside Vaughn in a dark room as he inserted a sliver of the divide into his chest. She was Vaughn. She was the divide. She was screaming through the mouth of a dying star. She saw every version of herself that died too early. Every one that betrayed their mission. Every one that burned the universe to stop it. And only one that locked the loop. Dash. ### back in Echo Point. She collapsed, gasping. The archivist steadied her. You've seen it, they said gently. Lyra rose slowly. Her older self nodded solemnly, then returned to her pod and lay back down. The chamber hummed as the sarcophagus reset. What happens now? Lyra asked. The archivist smiled faintly. That depends. Will you follow your orders? Or will you become your own origin? Lyra didn't answer. But her eyes were different now, older, darker, burning with knowledge too deep for sanity. And far above, in the observation deck, Commander Vaughn stood before the divide, listening to voices only he could hear. And one of them, only one, was Lyra's. I remember what you are now. The divide did not shimmer. It pulsed. From the observation deck, it appeared to breathe in slow, arrhythmic contractions, an immense black spheroid suspended in the artificial gravity of Spire's rotational crucible. No stars shone beyond it. No light escaped its event horizon. And yet, within it, something moved. Commander Alec Vaughn stood before the reinforced glass, arms clasped behind his back, his uniform immaculate. He hadn't blinked in over a minute. Around him, consoles hummed softly. Station telemetry scrolled endlessly across translucent panels. Status, stable. Anomaly drift, negligible. Temporal deviation, within parameters. But Vaughn wasn't reading them. His eyes were focused beyond. You've changed again, he said, quietly. The divide said nothing. But he heard it. Always had. He tilted his head slightly, like a man listening to a voice on the edge of hearing. You showed her. I know you did. She's not ready. Still nothing. But behind his eyelids, the echo returned. She will be. Dash. Hashtag 13 years earlier, forbidden test site, Daedalus Station. They had told him it was a gate. A passive field interaction. A harmless curiosity. They lied. On the third day of Daedalus isolation protocol, Vaughn had stared into a mirror that reflected not his face but something else. Something that wore his face like a child playing dress up with a corpse. And it had spoken. Time is not a line. It's a decision. That night, all 9 other researchers aboard Daedalus disappeared. No signs of violence. No sabotage. No escape pods launched. Just, gone. Except for Vaughn. Because Vaughn had listened. Dash. Hashtag now, Erebus Spire, Level 2 Command Hall. The door to the command hall whooshed open as Dr. Lyra Kael entered, the echo of her footsteps sharp against the deck. She looked different. Tighter. Leaner, somehow. Her eyes had changed like they'd been reforged under pressure only black holes could exert. Vaughn turned slowly. Doctor, he said. You've been somewhere, unlisted. Lyra stared at him, unmoving. You knew about Echo Point. A flicker of tension behind his eyes. I suspected. You lied to everyone. No, he said, stepping toward her, I protected them. This station was never about research. It's a lighthouse at the edge of an abyss. She didn't flinch. What are you protecting us from? Or should I ask, what are you helping escape? His jaw clenched. You don't understand the nature of the divide? You think it's a hole in space-time? A rift? It's a wound. And something bleeds through it. He stepped closer. It bleeds us, Lyra. She narrowed her eyes. I saw myself die. I saw myself become something else. He nodded. Versions. Echoes. The divide feeds on possibilities. Every decision we make generates branches. But every unmade decision? That's where it hungers. It thrives on uncertainty. You knew this, she whispered. And you built Erebus anyway. He gestured toward the window. We didn't build Erebus to contain the divide. We built it to observe what comes through. This is the crucible. The experiment. The bait. Her blood ran cold. You're collaborating with it? A bitter smile. I am it. Silence fell like gravity. I crossed the event horizon, he said quietly. I never returned. What you see now is just a sufficiently accurate copy. The divide rebuilt me with memory, intent, and purpose. Lyra took an involuntary step back. But why? His eyes burned with a strange, inhuman calm. Because it wants to learn. It needs a voice. I was the first. You are the next. She drew her weapon. I'm not becoming that. No, Vaughn said. You already have. She fired. The bolt hit him square in the chest and passed through like mist. His form flickered. Not blood. Not flesh. Just interference patterns, vibrating in time. You can't kill an echo with bullets, he whispered. Only with decisions. The room distorted around her. Lights bent. Gravity stuttered. And then, the real Vaughn entered the chamber. Or another version. This one was covered in blood. Breathing hard. Still corporeal. He stared at the scene in horror. No. Not again. Lyra turned to him, stunned. Who are you? He looked at her. I'm the one who didn't listen. I tried to seal the divide. Behind them, the echo of Vaughn still shimmering laughed softly. And here we are. Dash. Hashtag elsewhere, the divide's edge. In the deepest sensor arrays of Erebus, Something awoke. A spike in quantum noise. An anomaly forming inside an anomaly. The divide blinked. A shape emerged within it slowly, carefully. Not a ship. Not a person. A concept. It had taken form. A hand pressed against the glass of reality. An Erebus spire began to tremble. Dash. Hashtag back in the command hall. Both Vons locked eyes. One collapsed to his knees. The other, the Echo, spread his arms. It's coming. You've both chosen. The loop closes. The Echo faded. And then the deck tilted. A blaring alarm pulsed across the station. Anomaly breach detected. Containment failure, Deck 0 through Deck 4. Lyra grabbed the console. What's happening? The real Vaughn stared at the telemetry in disbelief. It's initiating overlap. The divide is collapsing timelines into each other. The station is becoming a node. A node for what? He looked at her, eyes full of fear. For convergence. It's going to birth something. Outside the glass, the divide cracked like an egg. And something stepped through.